One day before our wedding, she said she needed to see her ex for closure, so I followed her to the hotel, and what I saw inside made me cancel everything and walk away forever. I am 34, and for the longest time, I truly believed I knew what the next chapter of my life would look like. I could see it so clearly. A small ceremony, gentle music flowing through the evening air, the woman I loved standing across from me, her eyes glowing with promise. Her name was Lena. She was the kind of woman who walked into a room and made the noise fade. She carried herself with a certain fragile grace, like someone who had known both love and loss too early in life. The first time I met her was at a wedding reception in Seattle. She was standing near the balcony, holding a glass of champagne, looking at the city lights as if searching for something just out of reach. I remember thinking that her smile looked like it had a story behind it, a story that hadn't yet found its ending. We talked that night, and she told me about her past, about a man named Ryan who had left without warning, taking with him not just her heart but her confidence in love. She spoke of it calmly, almost as if the pain had become familiar company. I listened, not because I wanted to fix her, but because I wanted to understand her. That conversation lasted hours. By the time the music stopped, I knew I wanted to see her again. What followed was a love that felt like healing. She was gentle but brave, cautious yet hopeful. She'd leave little notes in my jacket pockets, text me at odd hours just to ask if I'd eaten, and when life got heavy, she'd sit beside me in silence until the weight lifted. Within months, we became each other's constant. The kind of love that feels effortless, like it was always meant to be. So when I proposed a year later, surrounded by the soft glow of candlelight, she said yes with tears in her eyes. I thought that was the beginning of forever. But forever, it turns out, can shatter quietly. 3 days before the wedding, I noticed the shift. It started small, the way she looked away when her phone buzzed, the quick smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, the quiet spaces between her words. I told myself it was just pre-wedding stress. Everyone gets cold feet before a big commitment, right? But something in my gut whispered that it was more. The next evening, while she was in the shower, I saw her phone light up on the table beside me. A message from someone named Ryan appeared on the screen. "Can we meet one last time? I just want closure." My chest tightened. I put the phone back without unlocking it, pretending I hadn't seen anything, but the words echoed in my head like a warning. When she stepped out moments later, she smiled, kissed my cheek, and spoke about the wedding guest list like nothing was wrong. I tried to ignore the knot forming in my stomach, but later that night, when I asked casually if Ryan had reached out, she hesitated just long enough for me to notice. Then she said, "He's just going through some stuff. It's nothing." Her tone was light, but her eyes betrayed her. That look, the one that holds a secret you're not supposed to know. It's something you never forget. The next day, she brought it up herself. "I'm going to see him tomorrow," she said. "He deserves closure before I get married. It's something I need to do." Her voice was calm, even gentle, like she was explaining something logical. But her words landed like ice. Tomorrow, the day before our wedding. I remember sitting there in silence, trying to process it. I asked, "Why now? Why not weeks ago?" She said it would help her move forward without regret. She promised it was just a conversation. No hidden feelings, no second thoughts, just closure. I wanted to believe her, but the word closure has a cruel way of sounding like a goodbye in disguise. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her walking toward him, laughing the way she used to laugh with me, touching his hand the way she once held mine. My mind played every possible scene like a cruel film I couldn't pause. When morning came, she dressed carefully. White blouse, light makeup, her hair tied neatly back, like she was preparing for something that mattered. She kissed my forehead softly and said, "I'll be back soon." Then she walked out the door. I sat there for a few minutes, torn between trust and instinct. But in the end, instinct won. I grabbed my keys, waited a few minutes, and drove after her. She drove across town until she pulled into the parking lot of a downtown hotel. My heart stopped. I watched from a distance as she stepped out, her body language nervous yet familiar. Then he appeared, Ryan. The man who still occupied a part of her heart she claimed was closed. They hugged. Not the kind of polite hug shared between people tying loose ends. It was slow, lingering, the kind that spoke of old feelings and unfinished stories. I sat frozen in my car, hands clenched around the steering wheel, watching the scene unfold. Then they walked inside together. I waited. 10 minutes turned to 30. 30 turned to an hour. Every passing minute cut a little deeper. When she finally came out nearly 2 hours later, the sun was beginning to set. She looked calm, peaceful even, like someone who had finally made sense of something long unresolved. She didn't look like a woman who was about to get married tomorrow. She looked like someone who had just said goodbye, or maybe hello, to a past she never truly let go. I followed her home in silence, my mind a storm of questions. She walked in casually, joined her mother in a conversation about flower arrangements, and laughed like nothing had happened. Watching how easily she could slide back into normalcy, hurt more than anything else. Later that evening, when we were alone, I asked her, "How did it go?" She said, "It was good. I needed it. Now I can marry you without any baggage." Her words were calm, but there was something missing in her eyes. Something that used to be there for me, but wasn't anymore. I asked, "Did you tell him you're getting married tomorrow?" She looked away. That silence was my answer. That night, when everyone slept, I drove to the wedding venue. The hall was half-decorated, chairs stacked, flowers waiting to be arranged, lights half-hung. It was supposed to be the beginning of forever. But standing there, surrounded by symbols of promises that no longer felt real, I felt nothing but emptiness. The kind that seeps into your bones until even breathing feels like work. I realized that I couldn't walk down that aisle knowing what I knew. By dawn, my decision was made. I sent one message to her parents, to the wedding planner. "The wedding is off. Ask Lena why." Then I turned off my phone and sat in the quiet. When her father called hours later, his voice trembled between anger and confusion. I told him everything. The message, the hotel, the lies. There was silence on the line. Then he whispered, "She told us she was with her bridesmaids." And that was it. The call ended. By the time the sun set, the news had spread. Guests were notified. Deposits were lost. Vendors demanded explanations. Lena showed up at my door, eyes red, hands shaking. "It wasn't what you think," she said. "It was just closure. I needed to say goodbye." I looked at her and saw a stranger wearing the face of the woman I once loved. I said quietly, "Closure shouldn't need a hotel room." Her eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't find it in me to comfort her. In the following weeks, she tried to reach out, calls, texts, letters. I ignored them all, because when trust breaks, it doesn't shatter loudly. It crumbles slowly until there's nothing left to hold on to. Months later, I heard she'd moved to another city. Friends said she was doing well, but every now and then, I'd get a random message from an unknown number, short apologies, half-finished sentences. I never replied. Years have passed since that day. I'm doing better now, not because I've forgotten, but because I've learned that sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's the purest form of self-respect. And as for Lena, I hope she found whatever closure she was searching for, because in the end, she gave me mine, just not in the way either of us expected. So, if you ever find yourself loving someone who still looks back at their past, remember this. You can't build forever on the fragments of yesterday. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do, for both of you, is to walk away before you become another ghost in their story. And if you felt this story deep in your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because sometimes the hardest goodbyes are the ones that teach us who we really are.